you are going to learn how to color grade like a pro. The color is looking much better right now. Like I was saying earlier, in this video, you are going to learn how to color grade and how to understand color grading. It doesn't matter if you're using Photoshop, Camera Raw, Capture One, or Lightroom, because I'm going to explain everything in details in this video. And not just that, I'm going to share my personal workflow and tips for you. So with that being said, let's jump straight into the video. So the first software we're going to be using is Lightroom Classic. And I'm going to show you how you can color grade with Lightroom Classic right now before moving into Capture One. So let's start with Lightroom Classic. And the first thing to consider if you want to start color grading your image is the white balance of your image. So let me quickly explain what white balance is and how you can use it. So if you just come to your basic tab in Lightroom, you are going to see your white balance right here. And the white balance of your image is determined by the temperature of the light in the environment where you take the pictures. So we have a cool white balance, and we have a warm white balance and a balanced white balance. So if I just take my sliders towards the yellow side like this, I'm adding that warm feel to the image. It's going to make the image look warm. While if I take the slider towards the blue side for the temperature slider, I'm going to make the image look cool. So if you want to have that cool look on your image, you can take the slider of temperature towards the blue side. While if you want to have that warm feel, you can take the slider of the white balance towards the warm side like this to add that warm feel to the image. While for the tint, if you want to add a tint of green to the image, you can just move your greens towards this side to add greens to your image. While if you want to add a tint of magenta, you can just move your slider towards side to add a bit of purple or magenta to the image like this. So that's how white balance work. Let me give you a quick tip. If you don't know the white balance to use for your image, you can just pick this picker tool right here and just click on any dark part of the image to give a white balance, or any bright part of the image. Let's say like the teeth right here. Let me just zoom in. Let's say like the teeth right here that's white. You can just click on it and it's going to give the image a close to accurate white balance, or any gray part of the image. So that's how you get an accurate white balance. But for this image, I'm just going to make the image look a little bit warmer. So I'm going to take the white balance towards the yellow side like this to make the image look a little bit warmer like this. An example of colors that are warm are reds, yellows, oranges, while examples of colors that are cool are blues, cyans. If you want to get a cool feel of your image, just take a white balance towards the blue side. If you want to get a warm feel, take your temperature towards the yellow side to get a warm feel like that. So I'm going to leave this color right here on +5 like this. I like the white balance like this. I'm going to take the tints towards the green side a little bit like this. So that's for the white balance. Now we're going to move on to vibrance and saturation right here. The saturation right here refers to the intensity of the colors in the image. If I increase the saturation of the image, it's going to increase the intensity of how the colors look in the image. So if I just take the saturation all the way up like this, you can see the colors are looking vivid and the intensity are high. That's for the saturation. While if I take the saturation all the way down, it's going to reduce the colors on the image. Just take away the colors from the image and the color is going to be desaturated. That's going to look black and white. So that's the function of this saturation right here. So you can use saturation to increase the intensity of your overall colors in the image. But I don't want to use it. I'm going to take it down to 0%. While for vibrance right here, vibrance to increase the intensity of the colors selectively. Vibrance focus more on colors that are less saturated on the image. For example, if I increase the vibrance of this image, it's going to affect the less saturated colors in the image, like the skin tone. So if I take it all the way to 100, it's not going to affect the whole image the way saturation is. It's just going to select colors that are less saturated in the image and just make it a little bit saturated. That's for vibrance right here. If you want to maintain that natural looking colors on the image, just increase the vibrance a little bit instead of saturation. Except what you're going for is to increase the intensity of the overall color in the image. That's when you use saturation. But if you want to just increase the colors that are less saturated on the image, just increase the vibrance sliders up a little bit like that. So that's what vibrance and saturation. In summary, if you want to increase the intensity of the overall colors on your image, use the saturation sliders. But if you want to increase those colors that are less saturated on the image, use the vibrance color to increase those colors like that. So I'm just going to undo that. I'm just going to reset all of them. The next thing we're going to talk about in this Lightroom is the tool curves right here. The tool curves allow you to adjust the brightness. So if I just take it up like this, it's going to adjust the brightness. So with this tool curve, I can adjust the brightness and contrast of the image using curves. And not just that, with the RGB slider right here, I can add a particular color to the shadows area of this image, or the highlight area of the image, or the midtones area of the image with the RGB right here. or with this luma curve right here, I can just increase the brightness of the overall image or decrease the brightness of the overall image. So let me show you how to do that. So if you want to use your toon curves, let's say I want to add reds to the shadows of this image. You can see right here, if I take the slider up like this, I'm adding reds to the overall image. If I take it down, I'm adding greens to the overall image. But I don't want that. So let's say I want to add reds to the shadows of this image. I'll just come to my shadow area right here and just take it all the way up to add reds to under the shadows of the image. So let me just undo that. So let's say I want to add greens to the shadow of this image. I'm going to click on this shadow right here and just take it all the way down to add greens to the shadow of this image. But to give you more accurate selection, you can just click on this tool right here. So once I click on it, if I just hover around the image, you can see the curves right here is moving. So if I move it to the highlight side, you can see the pointer is on the highlight side on the curves. And if I move it to the shadow, you can see it's moving towards the shadow. So let's say I want to adjust the colors on the shadows. I can just click right here and just take the slider all the way up to adjust the colors on the shadow like that, to add reds or to add greens like that if I take it all the way down. And also for the highlights, let's say I want to add reds to the highlights. I can just click on the highlight right here once and just hover to reds to add reds to the highlights, or take it down to add greens to the highlight like that. And I can do the same thing for the greens. I can just click on any part of the image, like say here like this, and just add a little bit of greens to the image, or add a little bit of magentas to that part of the image, which is the midtones. Or I can click on the midtones right here and just take it up to add greens to the midtones, or take it down to add magentas to the midtones like that. And the same thing for the blues. You can click on the shadows area and just take it up to add blues to the shadows, or take it down to add yellows to the shadows like that. So you can see the colors right there. Why if I want to add contrast to this image, I can just come to my luma curve right here and just right click right here, just create an S curve, take these shadows all the way down. And for the highlights, I'm going to pick this tool again. I can do the same thing and click on the highlights like this and just take it all the way up to add contrast to the image. So if you see the before and after, if I click on done and just see the before and after, you can see the contrast we've added to this image with that curve tool like that. And also, let me just undo that. You can increase the overall brightness. If I take it all the way up like this, I can just increase the overall brightness of the image. And if I take it all the way down like this, I can darken the image. So let me just reset that. So that's how you can use your tool curves right here. After explaining how you can use all these tools to color grade your image, I'm just going to color grade this image so you can see how I color grade my image. So the next tool I'm going to be talking about is the HSL, which is the hue, saturation, and luminance. The hue is the actual colors of the image. So any color you are seeing on your image right here is the hue. So if I just move my hue sliders, I can change any color of the image by just moving my hue sliders. So let's say I want to change the colors of the green on this image in the background. So I'll just come to my green, just take it towards the yellow side like this to add yellows to the green. So just change those colors of the green. For this other image, if I just come to the reds and I just move the red hue of the red, you can see I'm changing the colors on the dress from red to yellow right now. And also for the yellows, if I just move the yellows towards the red, you can see I'm changing the yellows on the background. So if I just show you the before and after, you're going to see the difference. So this is the original image and this is the before. So you can use the hue sliders to change colors on your image. So let me just undo that. And for saturation, saturation means the intensity of colors on the image. So for example, if I want to increase the intensity of the reds on this image, I'll just come to my red slider and just move this up to increase the intensity of the reds on the image. So you just look at the lips. You can see the lips, the intensity of the colors of the lips has changed. So this is the before. This is the before and after. Just look at the lips. You can see the intensity has changed. So if I take it all the way down, if I just delete, you can see the image is looking black and white. All the rest of the image are no longer there because I desaturate the intensity of the color. Why if I increase the colors of the reds are going to be intense. So let me just undo that. And for the oranges, if I just increase the saturation of oranges, you can see the skin tone right here are changing. The intensity of the oranges in the skin tone are now obvious because the skin tone consists of oranges and I increase the saturation of the oranges. So that's why we have that intense looking colors on the skin tone. Why if I desaturate it, I move all the colors from the skin tone. So that's how you can use your saturation sliders. If you want to increase the intensity of the colors of your image, just play with your saturation slider. Why for luminance? Luminance simply means brightness. So if you want to brighten a particular colors on your image, so let's say I want to brighten or darken the reds on this image, I can just come to my luminosity and come to my reds and just the colors on the reds. You can see how dark it's looking right now. So you can see how dark the reds are looking. Why if I want to brighten it up, I can just brighten it up like this. You can see how bright it's looking right now. So also for the yellows, if I want to brighten the yellows, I can just increase the brightness of the yellows up, and you can see the colors on the background. Those yellows, those flowers right there are looking yellowish. Why if I want to darken it, I can just take it down and it's going to look dark like that. And I can do the same thing for the greens. If I just take the greens up a little bit like this, it's going to brighten those greens. Why if I take it all the way down, it's going to darken those greens. So that's how you can use your HSL. And another thing you can do, you can also use this picker tool right here to hover around the image and select any color you want to remove. Let's say, for example, I want to decrease the colors of the shirt she's wearing. I can just click on it once. I take it all the way up to increase the brightness. Why if I drag down like this, I'm going to decrease the brightness right there. So drag up to increase, drag down to decrease. So for the red, I can do the same thing for the red. I can just click on the red and take it all the way up to increase the brightness of the red, and take it all the way down to increase the brightness of the red, like that. So that's for the HSL. So let me just reset everything I did. Why for the color right here is the same thing, but here you can see the color right here. If I just click on the red, the same thing we have. You can just increase saturation, play hue, and play with the saturation, and also the luminance, increase the luminance, and make it a little bit brighter like that. So it's the same thing. So I'm just going to reset that. And the next I'm going to be explaining is this color grading right here. So for this color grading, just like the toon curve, you can add specific color to the highlights part of the image, the shadow part of the image, and the midtones part of the image. So let's say, for example, I want to add blues to the shadows of this particular image. I can just come to this part right here and just move it towards the blue side. With my shadow selected, I'll just move it towards the blue side. So you can see I'm adding blues to the image like this. If I want to add red, I can just take it to the right side to add red to the image. And if I drag it to this edge like this, I'm increasing the intensity, which is saturation. What if I take it down like this, I'm reducing this saturation. So I'm just adding a little bit of that color, but it's that color, but just a little bit of it to the image. And you can choose to increase the brightness with your luminance. You know, luminance means brightness. If you want to increase the color of the blue you just added, just take it like this. It's going to increase the brightness right there. Or if you want to decrease the brightness, just take it down. It's going to decrease the brightness like that. And the same thing for the midtones. You can add specific colors to the midtones. So let's say I want to add orange to the midtones. I'm going to take it towards the orange side like this, and just take the saturation up a little bit, take it down a little bit, so I feel it's okay like this. Like it's just to add brightness if I want, or brightness if I want. So I'm going to decrease the brightness a little bit like this. So that's how you can add colors to your midtones. And also you can do the same thing for the highlights. Why this one right here is the global adjustment. So once this place right here is selected, if I'm going to add greens to the overall image, if I add yellows, go to add yellows to the overall image. So that's how you use this your color grading slider right here. So I'm going to reset it. And finally, the last one I'm going to be explaining in this Lightroom Classic is called the calibration tool. So I'm going to scroll all the way down and see my calibration right here. The calibration tool helps adjust the overall colors and tones of the entire image. And not just that, the calibration helps you bring out the best of the colors already present in the image. For example, for this image right here, you can see the dominant color is green. So I just come to my green primary and just move the saturation of green to up like this. So let's say 80. You can see the massive difference that does to this image just by moving the green saturation slider under the calibration. And also, if I play with the hue, let's just play with the hue of the greens. Let's see what's going to happen. So I'm just going to add a bit of hue to the green like this. So another thing I'm going to do, I'll come to my blue primary and just increase the saturation of the blue primary all the way up like this, and just play with the hue as well to see. I'm going to take the hue to -21. So if I just show you the before and after what we just did, you can see this image right here is looking so good. So this is the original image and this is the after, just by doing color calibration. This is the before and this is the after. You can see how amazing the colors are looking just by moving a slider from the blue primary and the green. And we can do the same thing for this other image right here. So let me just reset this image and just come to my calibration and just come to the green primary and just move the saturation slider like this, and just move the hue like this as well. And also come to the blues and just move the saturation of the blues up like this. Play with the hue and see. Okay, I'm gonna move the hue like this. So you can see the massive difference. So this is the before. You can see the before. Let me just zoom in so you can see. You can see the before and the after. You can see how good this image is looking right now just by moving the calibration slider. So that's the power of calibration. It just gives your image that punch and just make the colors of the image look even more better. So if you feel the colors on the skin are looking too much, you can just come to your HS here and just come to your saturation. Because the intensity of the reds are too much, so we'll come to the reds and decrease the saturation of the red. That's to increase the intensity of the color. That's what saturation is. So also for the oranges, you can just come to the oranges and take saturation all the way down to increase the intensity of that color right there. And also you can do the same thing for the yellows, but I'm just going to leave the yellows like that. So see the before and see the after. So that's how you can use your calibration. So let me just reset everything and show you how I'm going to color grade this image if I'm going to color grade it using Lightroom. So the first thing I'm going to do for this image, I'll come to my white balance, and for my temperature, I'm just going to add a little of warm to the image. I feel the image is looking kind of cool, so I'm going to add warm to the image. If your image is looking kind of warm, you can just take it to the cool side, which is the blue side, like that. So I'm going to take temperature towards the warm side like this. So let's say to +5. And also I'm going to add things to this image. I feel this image has a little of green cast all over the image. So I'm going to take away that cast of greens from the image. So I'm going to add a little bit of magenta tints to the image like this. Now, next I'm going to do for this image, I'm going to scroll the way down to my vibrance and just add a little of vibrance to the image like this. Not saturation, I'm going to add vibrance to the image like that. And after that, next I'm going to do, I'm going to come all the way down to my calibration tab. I'll come to my blue primary and just increase saturation of the blues like this all the way to 84 or 80. And also for the green, I'm going to increase saturation of the green like this and just play with the hue and see which one works for me. So I think I'm going to take the hue towards this side to +34 like this. It works for me. So right now you can see the colors of the skin are not looking too saturated, but I don't want that. So I'm just going to come to my HS here. Since I want to remove the intensity of the reds on the skin tone, I'll just come to the saturation and just come to my red and just reduce the sliders of the reds like this. And also for the oranges, because the skin tone consists of red, oranges, and yellows, mostly oranges. So I'm going to take the oranges down a little bit like this. And also for the yellows, take it down a little bit like this. So if I just show you the side by side before and after, you can see how good this image looks right now. So you can see the before and the after, the before and the after like that. So another thing I can do for this image, I'm just going to come to my color grading. I'll come to my shadows. I'm going to add a little bit of blues to the shadows area, a little bit like this. And also I'll come to my midtones and I'm going to add a little bit of yellows or oranges to my midtones rather, just a little bit like this. So that's all I'll do to color grade this image in Lightroom if I was to color grade this image. So let's quickly see the before and after. So this is how the image was originally and this is the after. Now I'm going to show you how you can color grade using Capture One right now. But before I do that, if you've learned anything from this video so far and if this video has been helpful to you so far, make sure to give this video a like so more people can see this video and also learn from this video as well. To color grade your image Capture One is similar to Lightroom. So we still have the white balance right here. And also we still have this picker tool right here. You can just pick it and just click on any part of the image where you want to adjust the white balance. It's going to automatically adjust the white balance for you. Or you can just add a little of warm to the image like this, or a little of cool to the image like this. Just the same thing we did in Lightroom. So let me just quickly show you how I color grade the Capture One. So in Capture One, the first thing I'm going to do for this image right here, I'm going to add a little of warm to this image. So I'm going to take this slider, add a little of warm like this. And another thing I'm going to do, I'll come to my levels right here. And for my levels, you can choose to add different colors you want, just like the curve tone. You can see if I just play with this slider right here, I take this highlight sliders towards this side like this. That's for the yellows. You can see I'm adding reds to the highlight side. If I take it like this, I'm adding greens towards the highlight side. And if I take the reds like this, I'm adding reds in the shadows area. If I take it in like this, I'm adding greens in the shadows area. So you can just play with your sliders and see which one works for you, what you want to do with your image like that. So basically that's how these sliders work. If I just take this side like I see what's happened to the image, it's adding greens to the highlights area like that. Or if I take this side inside like this, I'm adding magentas to the shadows area. So if you want to add magenta to the shadow area, you can just move these sliders inside a little bit like that. So just play with your sliders and see which one works for you. So what I'm going to do with shadows for this image, I'm going to come to my RGB and just move the highlight sliders inside like this, just to add a little brightness to the image, and move the shadow inside like this to add contrast to the image, just a little bit like this. I like it like this. Now after that, next thing I'm going to do, I'm not going to be using my curve for this side, but you still have your curve right here. Same thing you have in Lightroom, you have it in Capture One. So you can just play with your curve, use that what you want. But I'm not going to be using my curve for Capture One. So I'm going to leave that and come to my color tab right here. Once my color tab, I come to my color editor, and this is basic right here. The same thing we have in Lightroom. We can have all your colors. We have our hue, saturation, and luminance, which is the lightness. So if I want to work on the reds, I can just pick the reds right here. So once I click on this, I jump back to right here. I can just select the reds, and it's going to select the reds, and I can just play with the hue and saturation just to change the colors, and increase the saturation to increase the intensity of the color, increase and decrease the lightness just to add brightness and darkness to the reds in the image. Let me just undo that. And you can see do the same thing for the greens. Change the colors of the greens, increase the saturation of the greens with the saturation, increase the lightness, just the same way we have it in Lightroom. And in Capture One, we have the advanced right here where you can easily pick any colors on the image. Let's say you don't know a particular color you want to pick, but you can just use this advanced to right here. Once you click on advanced, you're going to show this picker tool, and let's say for example I want to pick this any part of the skin tone. So let's just pick this part right here. It's going to select only that skin tone for me. And if I pick the yellow of the background, if I click on the yellows, it's going to select the yellows for me. And any adjustment I make is going to affect only the yellows on the image. If I just turn this view color range, you can see those parts that are showing colored are the parts that are selected. You can see it's selected some part of the skin tone, but we don't want those parts of the skin tone to be selected. So I'm just going to move this range towards only the yellow parts to take it out of the skin tone, because I don't want the skin tone to be selected, and just close this smoothness like this. So you can see right now only the yellows on the glass and the background are selected. So any adjustment I make right now is going to affect only the yellows. Why if I take selection of the greens, it's going to affect only the greens. So only the greens are going to be selected. And the reason why I say show yellows is because you can see yellows right here as it's selected. So I will just move this range inside to take it away from the yellows like that. So right now you can see only the greens on the image are selected. And to view the overall image, just click on this place right here again to remove this view selected color range. I'm going to bring back the whole colors of the image. And you can just simply play with the hue of the greens to change them if you want. You can play with saturation to increase the intensity if you want. And you can play with the lightness to increase the lightness or decrease the lightness if you want for the greens of the image. Now something special that Capture One has that Lightroom does not have is called this skin tone right here. So you can actually use this skin tone to even out the colors on the skin, just to get the skin tone to have an even color. And to use that, with your picker tool selected, just click on any part of the skin you want the rest of the skin to look like. Don't click on highlights, don't click on shadows, just click on midtones that you want the image to look like. So I want this image right here to look like this skin tone, this skin color right here. So I'm going to click on it, and if I just click on this view selected color range, all the parts that are selected are going to be on colors, while the parts not selected are going to be on black and white. But you can see it's still selecting part of the dress, and I don't want that. So I'm going to come to my range right here and just take it out of the reds, because I don't want the reds to be selected. I want only just the skins to be selected. So I'm going to take it out of the reds like this. So I feel it's okay like this. And also some parts of these yellows are selected. I don't want that. I'm going to take it out of the yellows like that and just have only my skin tone. Now that I have only my skin tone, I can just turn off this view selected color range so that I can see the whole colors on the image. But right now I know only my skin tone is selected. So to even out the colors of your skin, just come to your uniformity and just increase the saturation up, and the skin color is going to be uniform. So you can see all the skin color right now are looking uniform. And also you can also increase the saturation if you want. And also you can play with the hue of the overall colors on the skin to change the colors on the skin if you want, or the saturation right here to change the saturation if you want. If I take the saturation all the way up, you can see how saturated the skin tones are looking right now. And also the lightness, if I take the lightness all the way up, you can see I'm adding lightness to only the skin tone. If I take it all the way down, I'm making the skin tone a little bit darker, but I'm just going to leave the lightness like this and take the saturation all the way down a little bit. So let's see. So this is the before and this is the after. Just focus on the skin tone. Don't worry about the background. Just focus on the skin tone and just see how the skin will change. So you see the way the skin tone is before and the after, the before and the after. So you can see the skin tone right now are looking much more better. So that's one advantage Capture One has over Lightroom. So that's how I'll color grade this image in Capture One. I might not do everything I just did, but I'll just do a little bit just to make the image look good. but I just want you to understand how you can use it if you want to use it. Now, next I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how you can color grade your image inside of Camera Raw. So let me just open this image in Camera right now. So I'm going to undo everything I did, click on Edit With, and Open With rather. You just click on Photoshop, open in Camera Raw like this. So this is a Camera Raw. Camera Raw is almost exactly like Lightroom. So everything I did in Lightroom is what I'm going to do in Camera Raw. You can see we have our basic. You can just adjust the white balance like this. And also we have our vibrance right here. I can just add a little vibrance. And also we have our calibration. I'll just come to my blue primary, increase it, play with the hue. Do the same thing for the green, increase the saturation of the green primary, and just play with the hue of the saturation of the green primary a little bit like that. And come to my color mixer right here. I have my hue, saturation, and luminance as well. So I can just decrease the saturation of the reds, the yellows, and the oranges like that for the Camera Raw. And another thing I can do, I also have my color grading where I can add the particular colors to the highlights, the shadows, the midtones, like that, just the way we have in Lightroom Classic. So this Camera Raw and Lightroom Classic, they are really identical. I would say they are the same thing, but there are some functions which you can do in Lightroom that you cannot do in this Camera Raw. But aside that, the adjustments are identical, they are the same thing. So basically, everything I did in Lightroom Classic, I'm going to do the same thing in Camera Raw. So since I don't want to do that, I'm just going to reset everything and just open this image in Photoshop and finally show you how I'm going to color grade an image in Photoshop. So I'm going to reset everything, reset to default, and just open this image. The first thing I'm going to do in Photoshop, I'm going to duplicate my layer by pressing Ctrl J because I don't want to work on the background layer. That's why I duplicate my layer. And after that, you can use your adjustment layer right here to color grade your image. There are different adjustment layers you can use to color grade your image. You can use the solid color adjustment layer, you can use the gradient map, you can use the levels, you can use the curve, you can use the vibrance, you can use the hue and saturation. There are tons of adjustment layers you can use to color grade your image in Photoshop, but I'm going to show you the ones I use and the ones that are popular. So the first I'm going to show you is the selective color right here. So for the selective color, we have our reds, our yellows, our greens, our cyans, our blue, our magentas. So basically any color you can think of, right? So for the reds, if I take my reds towards this side, I'm adding cyans to the image. You can see it's having that kind of greenish tint, which we don't like. So if I just take it all the way back, I'm going to be adding reds to the reds. So look at the before and the after. So I'm going to add a little of reds to the reds just to make it pop. And I'm going to add blacks inside like this. If I take this black all the way inside, I'm adding contrast to the image. If I take it out like this, just making the image look a little bit light. So I'm going to add a little of blacks to the image like this to make it a little bit darker. And also for the yellows, if I take my yellows all the way up, I'm adding yellows to the reds. So if I just zoom, you can see the skin now. You can see those tints of yellows on the skin, but it's too much and we don't want that. But I take it all the way down, as you can see, I'm adding that kind of magenta feel to the image and we don't want that. And also you can see it's affecting only those parts that are reds on the image because we are working on the color red. That's why it's affecting only the reds on the image. So any adjustment we are making right now is affecting only those parts that has reds on the image, like the skin tone and the dress. So I'm going to take these yellows all the way up. I'm going to leave this yellow at 0 like this. And because I'm focusing on the skin tone, I'm going to be working on only the yellows and reds for the skin tone because that's what consists of the skin tone in Photoshop. Yellows and the reds. While for Capture One, Camera Raw, and Lightroom, oranges consist more of the skin tone, but in Photoshop, the skin tone consists of yellows and reds, and maybe sometimes magenta, but mainly yellows and reds. So I come to the yellows and just add a little bit of reds to the yellows, just a little bit, because I don't want it to affect those flowers on the background, and just add a bit of yellows to the yellows. Add a little of blacks to the yellows just to darken it a little bit. So basically that's what I'm going to do for the skin tone for this image. So this is the before and this is the after. So I like the skin tone like this. And another adjustment we are going to be talking about is the color balance right here. So this color balance, just like in Lightroom, Camera Raw, and Capture One, you can actually add colors to your shadows, highlights, and midtones. So let's say I want to add a little bit of reddish feel to the highlights. I can just move my sliders towards the red side like this to add that red feel to the highlights of the image. It's going to affect only the highlight on the image, and make sure your preserve luminosity is selected. If this is checked, it's going to preserve how bright the original colors are. So I'm going to leave it like this. Or let's say I want to add cyans to the highlights, I'm going to take it towards the cyan side like this to add cyans towards the highlight. So you see, if I take it to the side, I'm adding reds. If I take it to one side, I'm adding cyan. So I'm going to add a bit of red to the highlights like this. And also you can also add magentas to the highlights. You can also add greens to the highlight. So you can just play with it and see which one works for you. I'm going to add a bit of blues to the highlights. I'll take it like this to the highlights. So you can see for my highlight, I added a little bit of reds. I added just 1% of green, and I added 4% of blues as well for my highlights. And you can come to your shadows. You can add yellows to your shadows area if that's what you want. You can add blues to your shadow area if it's what you want. You can add magentas, you can add greens, you can add cyans, and also you can add reds to your shadows area if that's what you want. But I'm just going to set it to 0 and just add a bit of yellows towards the shadows area. So I'll come to my shadows area, add a bit of yellows like that. While for my midtones, I'm going to add a bit of reds to my midtones, just like this, and compensate by adding a little of blues as well, just a little bit, like say +4, +1 works for me. So let me just group everything and show it before and after of what we just did. So this is the before and this is the after. You can see how it is right now. You can see how the colors are popping for this image. So this is the before and this is the after. The before and the after. So I'm just going to hide that and show you another tool which you can use to color grade your image in Photoshop, and that tool is called the hue and saturation right here. So this hue and saturation, the same way we have the hue and saturation in Lightroom, Camera Raw, and Capture One, we have it in Photoshop as well. So you can see we have our hue, which is the exact color you are seeing on the image. We have our saturation, which is the intensity of the color, and we have our lightness, which is how dark or how bright you want the entire image to be like. And since this is on master, if I just move the hue, it's going to affect the whole image. It's going to change the colors of the whole image because we are on masters. And the same thing, if I move the saturation of the whole image is going to change. And the same thing, if I take the lightness all the way down, it's going to make the image a little bit darker. If I take it up, it's going to make the image look bright like that. But since we want to be targeting specific color, you can use this hand tool right here. Just click on it and just target any color you want to adjust. So let's say I want to adjust the red. Once I click on the red, it's going to automatically adjust the red. And if you want it to affect only just the red, you can just click on this color range right here and just reduce it to affect only just the red. It's not going to affect the yellow. It's going to affect only just the red. And if I increase it like this range like this, if I increase it, it's going to affect all the colors that are there. So if I just play with the saturation, you can see it's still going to make the colors of the green saturated, the colors of the yellow saturated, because I increased this range. So I'm just going to take the range all the way down, and let me show you how it works. So once I take the range all the way down and just fix it only on the reds, I want to affect only the reds. So I'm going to fix it only on the reds. It's going to affect only the reds like that. If I just play with the saturation, you can see it's affecting only the part that had reds on the image, and it's not affecting the yellows or the greens. It's affecting only the reds like that. So if you want same thing, if you want to work on the yellows, you can just come to your yellows and just play with your hue, saturation of the yellows like that. So if I take this side, you can see the colors are changing for the yellows, and also the saturation, you can increase the intensity of the yellows, and lightness, you can make it light, you can make it dark. So let me just reset that and just come to my reds. So if I just play with the reds, you can see the saturation are changing, and this is why it's affecting the background. It's because of the color range right here. So just make sure this color range is fixed only on the reds. This place right here is fixed only on the reds. So that way any adjustment you make is going to affect only the reds. It's not going to affect any other part of the image. So I'm just going to delete that. And the same way we have the levels adjustment layer, we have the RGB, just the way I explained it in Capture One. We still have them in Photoshop right now. So you can choose to add any colors to the highlights area or the shadow area or the midtones area with your levels. And the same thing, we have the curves right here. You can choose to make the image brighter with your curves, darker with your curves, or you can choose to add specific colors to your image. So you can see right here, you can choose to add grays to the midtones or greens to the midtones like that. If you come to your greens, you can choose to add blues to your highlights or yellows to your shadows. The same way we have it in Lightroom, that's the same way we have it in Photoshop. So basically, we have almost identical tools in Lightroom, Capture One, Camera Raw, and Photoshop. So just pick any one that works for you, master one, and stick to it, and use it to color grade your image. Except maybe you want something that Capture One can do, like the skin tone uniformity, you can do that in Capture One, or you want to do that color calibration in Camera Raw and Lightroom, so you can use Lightroom and Camera Raw to do that calibration if that's what you want. So basically, this is how you can understand how to color grade your image and just tweak your tools, your sliders the way you want. You can play with it anyhow you want. You can just be artistic with it. You can be creative with it. But basically, that's how you use all those sliders in Camera Raw, Capture One, Lightroom, and in Photoshop. I really love to know what you think about this video. So let me know in the comment section what you think about this video. And if you want to learn how to retouch your portrait image from beginner to pro, everything you need to know about portrait retouching, click on this video shown right here. I'll see you guys in my next video. Stay creative.